Hi everyone, welcome to Facebook Live Tuesday Talks with Adrienne Miller. I'm Adrienne Miller. I am the President and CEO of Women for Sobriety. I'm super excited to join you for another Facebook Live. Good topic tonight is continuing our Sister Skills series. And tonight we are going to talk about healthy conflict. Which are two words we don't usually put together, but we're going to try and make sense of them tonight. So this is the final in a series of sister skills that I had planned. We may come up with more sister skills in the future. Our sister skills series is really about how do we interact in these self-help mutual aid groups. Right, so interacting with other women in recovery from substance use, either online or in live meetings or Zoom meetings or Facebook feeds, anywhere we interact with other women in recovery. So how do we do that? We've already talked about privacy and confidentiality. We've talked about advice and giving or not giving advice. We've talked about active listening and boundaries. So I saved the most fun one for last, and that is conflict. And of course, conflict is inevitable, right? As somebody told me, I was having some issues with someone that I knew through Women for Sobriety early on in my journey, and I was talking to someone about it, another woman from Women for Sobriety, and she said, "Well, Adrienne, we don't end up in Women for Sobriety because we're all healthy, well-balanced, well-adjusted individuals." And I was like, oh yeah, I'm here because I'm maybe not that healthy myself right now. So I guess that makes sense. So it's great because we have this kind of safe container where we can practice new skills. But we also, sometimes the way that I'm unhealthy is going to conflict with the way you're unhealthy. And that can just create some issues. But when I'm talking tonight about healthy conflict, I'm not just talking about unpleasant conflict, but I think what's really healthy in our environments is when we have more of like dissent or disagreement, or people that think or do things differently than I would think or do them, right? And those things are really, really healthy. Right? We have a discussion format program, right? So our meetings are very interactive. It's very much a conversation going back and forth. And conversations get boring if everybody agrees and everybody thinks the same. And so having this disagreement or different ways of thinking, that's really one of the strengths of our program, is that we can share those things and hear those things. And that's really how we grow in our recovery. It really challenges us to think differently and to learn new things and to broaden our perspective about life. The more different types of voices we have in the room, the more perspectives we get, and the more we can learn and expand our own selves. Conflict or disagreements in the group also, like I kind of referred to earlier, gives us a real opportunity to practice some healthier responses. Right? And it's in this safe container of within the group of other women in recovery. Some of them really new like us, some of them much more practiced, like some of others of us. And we really have a safe opportunity to practice that. The best thing about conflict or dissent for me is that it really invites me to do some deeper processing. I especially like being challenged on some of the principles of the Women for Sobriety New Life program. I know that sounds weird, but when someone comes to me and says, well, this negative thoughts destroy only myself, well, that's stupid because X, Y, or Z. When I have to respond to that and explain, and maybe I agree with them and maybe I don't, but it's gonna cause me to delve deeper into my beliefs about the program, about my understanding of, say, how that statement works, and about how we communicate around that, right? So it's really providing me with an opportunity to go a little bit deeper, to think a little more critically. And then when I have to verbalize it, I really have to understand what I'm talking about when I say it. So when there's new people that come into WFS and they really don't understand things, I love it. I love it when they tell me, I don't get this. This doesn't make sense. I think I like 12 of these statements, but this one I think is BS. And that's fine, right? That's our opportunity to look at ourselves and why do I believe this one, and get some more clarity about that. So I think that's a wonderful thing. When it comes up in groups, right, either on our WFS online or in our Facebook feed or in meetings, I think there's a number of ways that we can think about disagreement or conflict. I think we can really look at it as an opportunity to practice new skills, especially for newcomers, right, who maybe don't have a lot of these healthy skills to interact. Even when two women who are fairly established in their recovery, it's great when they have a disagreement, right? Because they can really role model, hey, here's how we practice some healthy communication skills. And if you have a conflict with someone who's really new in sobriety, and you've been around a little bit longer, just remember how tough it was your first year of recovery. Let's give each other grace, right? We strive to have a compassionate and understanding environment. So, above all else, if someone is struggling, even if they've been in the program for a long time, let's be realistic. We can still have moments where we struggle, even when we've been sober for 10, 15, 20 years, right? Have compassion, have grace. Know that it's almost never personal, which we'll link back to in a little bit. But practice your understanding and your love, right? Conflict is a great opportunity to practice compassion and to practice those love statements, right? Love can change the course of my world, and all I've given returns. And hopefully, if we're going to go with number 10, if I can show grace to others when they're really struggling and I feel like they're behaving badly, then hopefully I will be shown that same grace when I'm behaving badly and maybe not making the best choices about my communications. Conflict within the group also gives us a really great opportunity to practice number 13, to practice our personal responsibility, right? And even when others are behaving undesirably or making unhealthy choices, it provides us with an opportunity to really practice staying in our wise self and making choices that we're going to feel good about. Right? So even if someone's yelling and screaming and swearing at me, I can take responsibility for my part of that, which is my actions, my thoughts, and my reaction. So conflict can be a really good opportunity for that as well. I'm going to link this back just a little bit to our other sister skills, because this is where our sister skills are really going to come in handy, is when conflicts or disagreements show up. Right? So, staying away from advice. And where this can also really show up is, we talked in that sister skills a little bit about rescuing, right? We don't need to rescue our sisters from their difficult emotions. And this goes for when we see two other members in the group having a conflict, right? I might share my thoughts about what's going on, but I don't need to jump in and rescue one or rescue the other, or try to take sides or try to take responsibility for their feelings for each other, right? I can stay away from advice in those moments. I can practice my active listening, right? So listening fully and staying out of our judgment mind, whether, it's, again, a conflict that I'm viewing between two others, or I'm feeling like, someone's disagreeing with me or being confrontational. I can still stay in my active listening and really practice listening fully, staying out of my judging mind, and just trying to understand and empathize where they're coming from. This is a great opportunity to practice boundaries, right? And not over-personalizing. Most of our behavior has way more to do with us than it does anyone else, right? So if someone in the group is behaving in a way that I disagree with, I know it's 90%, maybe more of the time, it's not about me. It's about them, where they're at, their beliefs. And so I can really practice my good boundaries in those moments. And then, of course, our first sister skills was around privacy and confidentiality. So we also need to keep this in mind when we're thinking about conflict within the WFS group. If you need to go get support, sometimes the best place to get support for a conflict that's happening within WFS might be somewhere else. But of course, you're always going to maintain confidentiality and privacy. You're not going to use any identifying information. You're not going to talk about the other person. You're going to talk about yourself and your feelings and what this is bringing up for you, right? Because usually when I feel triggered by something that someone else is saying, or I feel emotional about what someone else is saying, it's often touching some old wound in me that I haven't resolved. And so it's a great opportunity to kind of look at that. And so we want to keep in mind our privacy and confidentiality sister skill, even if someone else in the group is behaving really, really badly in our minds. So what are some things that we can do when these kinds of conflicts come up within the group? I think our number one thing is to take a break, and that might even just be a big breath. It might mean temporarily leaving a situation that you find overwhelming. Above all, you're going to protect your sobriety, right? So if it feels like something that's going to be too much for you, hitting the pause button and stepping out of the situation, that's okay to do if you really need to. I do think, though, that you want to be mindful of just breaking things off, right? There was a slightly uncomfortable moment in the group. I'm going to quit the group and I'm never going back there again, right? Use it as an opportunity for growth. Change some old patterns. So if your old pattern is to just, there was a fight, I'm out of here, I'm never going back there, maybe practice something different. Maybe practice coming back and talking about your discomfort and processing that discomfort. Not in a confrontational way that's going to perpetuate conflict, but in a self-reflection kind of way. And maybe if you're the type of person who will really dig your heels in and fight for what you think is right, might be a good opportunity to practice a new skill of stepping back and listening and trying to gain deeper understanding from someone else rather than fighting for your position. Anytime there's conflict within WFS, the best thing to do is to address the other person directly, right? That's always the number one thing. Going to get support for your feelings is one thing, but if you're trying to resolve some kind of conflict or disagreement, you're going to have to do that with the person that you have a conflict or a disagreement with. So I think it's really good practice to try and address them directly. I think if you're really not comfortable doing that, sometimes we have two group members who are having a conflict, or even sometimes co-facilitators who are having a conflict, and they seek out support from a board member or from a staff member. And I don't think there's anything wrong with seeking a mediator. I think doing that openly, right? So contacting, on a group email, right? So, hey, me and so are having a difficult time. I've copied her here. Can we meet sometime? And maybe get a third voice in the room, right? So really making it a mutual thing, not I'm gonna go get so and so on my side, and then she's gonna come in and give her what for. We don't want to do that. But seeking a mutual mediator in a really open way can sometimes be really helpful and help people depersonalize a little bit of it and just get that third brain in on it. We also have statement number 9, right? And so sometimes with conflict, we do just have to let it go. Sometimes within our groups, we do just have to acknowledge, like, that person might just be in a really bad place. And I might not get a resolution to this. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that I'm doing anything wrong. That doesn't mean I'm not a supportive sister. It just means, we're just going to let this one go right now. And I think that one can be really, really hard. But sometimes we just don't get resolution. We just need to let things go. So those are just a few ideas. Obviously, this is not a comprehensive list. Anytime you get a bunch of women in the same room that are all together because maybe we aren't the most healthy and well-balanced individuals, we have the potential for conflict. We can choose to see it as really healthy and stimulating new growth. We can choose to see it as really scary and something that we should avoid. Or we can see it one way sometimes and one way other times. Those are just a few of my ideas about how conflict can be healthy in groups like ours. And I hope that I gave you some tips. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment box. Let's see if we can flesh this out a little bit more together. And I will be back in 2 weeks. We are going to talk about the handling the holidays, the relapse rescue plan. So thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.